Some of these protesters hold up signs proclaiming gays for Gaza. They might as well hold up signs saying chickens for KFC.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Where John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, are we going to have an interesting show today? What do you think?
I was worried that folks at the St. Louis Business Expo wouldn't have anything to talk about today. Maybe they could talk about the rain or the next event coming to the Family Arena. But I think they're going to have a few things to talk about, Brad.
We do this show live between 7 and 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday. Today is the day after the election. Today is Wednesday morning, November 6th, for reference. People who are listening live know what day it is, but into the future when this may be rebroadcast or listened to on the podcast or on YouTube, I give that as a reference. Now, having said that, John, you and I come from two different perspectives this morning. You were very much plugged in. Matter of fact, you were on Scott Fawn's show last night. What time did you get done with that?
We got done about 10:45 p.m., Brad.
Which was much earlier than you thought. You thought it was going to go to about 11:30 or so, right?
I did, yeah. Actually, I think actually Scott thought we'd be done around 10. I thought it'd be closer to like midnight. So maybe we split the difference there.
Okay. I'm not using this as an excuse. I just come out and tell this crazy story. I had a dental procedure done yesterday, okay? And they didn't put me under anesthesia, but they numbed me up and they shot me in the gums with the junk. You probably know what I'm talking about, right, John?
I do know, yeah.
By the way, this is John's referral, Bogey Hills Dental. And by the way, you are right there. Very good, okay?
Fantastic, yeah.
I don't know what it is. I've had this happen before, but when I get like that painkiller or the anesthesia, it just messes with me all damn day. And for most of the day yesterday, I was a zombie. You know, I mean, not like to the point where I just walking around like walking into things, but I was just out of it and just felt sort of loopy. You know what I'm saying? And
I do know.
And I couldn't eat anything because of the fact that I had a tooth taken out, all that kind of crazy stuff. And I had to eat soft stuff, so I made myself some pasta last night. I ate my pasta, and I went to bed at 8 o'clock. And I fell asleep at 8 o'clock. So I didn't know what the hell happened till this morning when I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. And I looked at my phone and I went, oh, crap, look at this. And I've said all along, I thought, and I said, I think I even said it yesterday morning, that Kamala Harris is going to win. And I have to be honest with you, I am shocked that Trump won. I really am shocked.
Wow. I mean, I think the two takeaways here are, if you do go to the St. Louis Business Expo today and see Brad, this is a good time to take advantage of him and get a great rate on ads. Don't talk to Shelley. Shelley is generally more pleasant and lovable. But don't talk to Shelley today. Today, go right to Brad because he's a little loopy. And number two, Brad, there is a chance that you bought into a little bit of a mainstream narrative about how mad women are and how everybody hates Donald Trump. And I know you're smarter than to take a whole bite of that line that they pitch you, but you might have started to fall for that a little bit, Brad.
No, it's not that I bought into it. It's just that, I mean, for example, on our very radio, or this very radio station, Armstrong and Getty, who comes on the air after us at 8 o'clock, okay? These guys are really good, and they do a ton of research. And the other day, they were reading these reports of all these. There are these media companies that monitor all the network newscasts and things like that. And they were giving the networks, ABC, NBC, CBS. And they were analyzing the relationship of the reports on Kamala Harris and the news reports on Donald Trump. And almost every single one of them, it was like, okay, 95% of the reports on Donald Trump during the ABC, CBS, NBC News were negative, and 85% of the Kamala Harris reports were positive. So once again, all you have to do is listen to NPR. I told you the story over the weekend that when listening, one of the reporters was saying, well, the real goal here is to not get Trump elected again. And then go like, dude, you're supposed to be unbiased,
Right, of course.
You just come right out and say it. I thought that, and especially with all the stars and everything. But what's interesting, remember, I even said, I thought, I don't know if the cavalcade of stars is a good look, because the Democrats traditionally have had that working. I mean, like, for example, Biden is an old school Democrat, lunchbox Joe. You know what I mean?
Yep. I do know.
A union guy shows up at the union side. Yeah, we got a problem with Jim down the street. We're going to go bust his head. You know, he said that the other day about we're using it as one of the promos. I thought that was exactly opposite where the Democratic Party had come from, because all the people that Kamala had on stage were all the elite. It was Oprah. And, you know, once again, Oprah, if you heard her thing, if Donald Trump gets reelected, it's the end of civilization. And this may be the last time you are able to vote. I'm going like, okay, hold on a minute. You know, to me, that is like not over the top. That's over the top, because of the fact that there's crazy things that happen in our government, but unless some catastrophic situation happens, I don't think there'll ever be a time when there'll be a president who'll say, well, we're not going to have an election anymore. I'm just going to be the king forever. You know what I'm saying?
I do know, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but probably my greatest joy this morning, before speaking to you, Brad, was watching a clip from MSNBC this morning, and it was the first news source that I sought out. And it was a host last night who was breaking the news to everyone that it appeared as Donald Trump had won, and she was preparing her viewers for what is it? She didn't use the word fascist, but she said autocratic state. And she was trying to prepare them emotionally for the fact that Donald Trump is going to do all of these horrible things. He might not have done them for the first 4 years, but in his second term, it's going to be so bad, Brad.
And once again, that is a journalist. That lady, was it a lady who said that?
There was, yeah.
That lady probably has a journalism degree, which I have two of, which I say all the time are worthless. Maybe that's the new journalism, but that's not the way journalism is supposed to be. Journalism is supposed to be the dude you see or dudette you see on TV, here on radio, is supposed to be down the middle. I gave the example of the guy who used to have on my AM station on what is now crap, Jamie Dupree, who was the Washington bureau chief for Cox Media, and he talked about, and I've adopted the same thing. I didn't vote yesterday because of the fact that I don't want to bias anybody. I don't want to say, well, you should vote for Trump, because I essentially said I thought that Harris was going to win. But the idea being is that the journalist is supposed to support, neutrality, and supposed to essentially present both sides of the story. If the chief of police says his police officer did something right, you want to go to somebody else who was an eyewitness and say, no, that's not correct. The guy, the police officer smacked that guy in the head, and then he ran over with his police car. Okay? That's how it's done. You get both sides of the story. You don't say, like autocratic state. The crazy thing about this is, and I'm not saying this in support of Trump, I'm going like, there's a line, because of the fact that you're involved in stock market and things like that. There's a common disclaimer, and you can probably recite it right off the top of your head, where when you hear somebody talk about pitching a stock or something like that, it's in prospectus. What is it about past performance, John?
Yeah, past performance does not indicate future results.
The past performance of Donald Trump was, we had a great economy. Remember, keep in mind, remember the crazy thing that when all these experts, I could probably dig up these things after he was elected, if he was president-elect, and all these stock market gurus, oh my God, the stock market's going to go in the toilet. Remember that, John?
I do remember it. Of course I do.
And they were preaching doom and gloom. What happened when Trump got in office? You're the stock market guy. What happened?
Yeah, the market did very well. And I would also point out the fact that for the last few weeks, the market has been pricing in a Donald Trump victory, which is why you've seen a boost. You talk about reporting it straight down the line, Brad. There was a vote in Missouri that was straight down the line. Maybe it's time to get into the top three.
Well, let's do that. And we got this guy. He comes in every morning, and matter of fact, we bring him out of Norway. We put him in dry ice, and we fly him in. And what's your name again?
I'm Casey.
And he does this countdown thing. What do you do now?
Now on with the countdown.
And he starts off with?
In third place.
Two really high-profile votes yesterday on amendments that we've talked about quite a bit on this show, Brad. Amendment 3, legalizing abortion, and depending on who you listen to, legalizing abortion up to the point of birth. And Amendment 2, focused on sports betting. Now, as generally predicted, Amendment 3 on abortion passed by a margin of about 4 points, Brad. A little bit more like 3.5 points. that Amendment 3 passed by, and amazingly, a razor-thin margin, sports betting, Amendment 2, passed by less than 1%. And I say amazing because it's rare that in the state of Missouri we have a vote that comes down to fewer than 10,000 votes. The yes votes won by a little bit more than 7,000 votes. Brad, the capacity of the Family Arena is about 9,000 people for a hockey game. So the size of the Family Arena in the entire state of Missouri legalized sports betting yesterday.
Well, you and I talked about this last week. I think it was pretty much a done deal that Amendment 3 was going to pass the abortion issue. But remember, the experts were saying, I don't know, the Amendment 2 thing is close, and they were right on the button with that one, weren't they?
They really were. And, you think about the fact, Brad, we talked a couple weeks ago that the No on 2 campaign decided to cancel all of their television. And the reason they gave was they said, we're going to focus more on direct voter outreach and community events, something along those lines, which I read as maybe, paid phone calls or maybe paid door knockers. Well, we can all be Monday morning quarterback, but this was a razor thin margin. And it's kind of fun to think, Brad, what would have happened if this failed? Would the legislature have tried to address it? Would the casinos have all come together and finally been united with the sports teams and really make a push for it? But what a razor-thin margin, 7,000 in the state of Missouri, Brad.
Okay, just out of curiosity, because once again, I just woke up this morning and found out that Trump's the president-elect. I didn't watch things last night. What's the deal on the casino betting down there in the Lake of the Ozarks? What was the deal on that?
It failed. So there will be as of now, there will be no Bally's Casino at Lake of the Ozarks. That measure passed roughly 52 to 48.
But the Indians are still going to build a casino down there, correct?
We don't know. Now, they remember that the Osage Indians, still need to get approval from the federal government. And so we haven't gotten word from the feds on that yet. If I had to guess, Brad, I would say the Indians get approval before another casino gets voter approval.
Interesting. Okay, number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
As predicted on our show, and we can't take credit for a big call here, Brad, because I think this election was decided a long time ago, but Josh Hawley defeated Lucas Kunce by a margin of 14 points, Brad. Not even single digits. Last night on the election night show, Scott and I were going back and forth because for a while it looks like Lucas Kunce might get within 10 points of Josh Hawley, and I couldn't believe it. And then as the final votes came in, Hawley won by 14%. So this is a big victory. And one of the things that we talked about last night on the election night show, when you think back to that, remember that confrontation they had at the state fair, Brad?
Yeah, which was sort of phony baloney, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit staged. But my point is that confrontation, Josh Hawley had a documentary crew behind him as he was confronting Lucas Kunce. That wasn't about just running up the margin on Lucas Kunce. That was showing the nation and showing political observers that he is a fighter, that he likes confrontation. That was for a national audience. Now, we do have Donald Trump elected now, but there's a presidential election in another 4 years. There's a presidential election in another 8 years. And I think that not only can Josh Hawley say that he built up a 14-point victory over a really well-funded opponent, but he did it by taking a liberal face-to-face, head-on, getting right in his face because Josh Hawley is a fighter. That's the meta message, I think, from the campaign, Brad.
Now, you want to know the real message from what you just said? The takeaway.
Ooh, I want to know.
The takeaway that Brad has? When John says that something is staged, John is a WWE fanatic. When John says something was staged, that means it was really over the top, right? Because
absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's quite a bit of theatrics there. And it didn't necessarily hurt Kunce too much because he could go to his supporters and put on his fake accent and say, I just was trying to have a conversation and then Josh Hawley got in my face.
And by the way, I want to thank, and matter of fact, he should be thanking me. I want to thank Josh Hawley for all the money he spent with me for 2 election cycles in a row on our station, which, once again, they're always saying, we have to reach those suburban women, and our Westplex 107.1 station does exactly that. Josh, oh, that's right. He didn't buy anything again.
And you reached out to somebody at his campaign, right?
Yeah, and I got crickets.
I was being sarcastic. I expected that you didn't actually reach out to somebody in that campaign.
No, I did. I mean, once again, John, it drives me nuts. It's just like that thing I sent you the other day. The thing I sent you the other day about iHeart. Although in the radio business they don't have the best reputation. We call them, McRadio, which I use for a lot of time, and some people call them the evil empire. They've figured out what to do, and it's not just radio. It's audio in general. It's digital. It's over-the-air broadcasting a whole bit. They reach in the country 9 out of 10 people every month. Okay, 90% reach rate, okay? But yet, if you talk to your average person on the street, what did do 4 people in St. Louis listen to radio now? It's like, no, that's not the way it works. But
well, thanks for that, Brad. I'm glad we were able to work that in post-election.
Now for number 1.
The number 1.
Missourians have overwhelmingly elected Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe to be the next governor of the state of Missouri. Excuse me. It was really a foregone conclusion after the primary. We were going to either end up after the primary with Governor Jay Ashcroft, Governor Bill Eigel, or Governor Mike Kehoe. One of the parlor games that we've all played was, would Crystal Quade outdo the previous Democrat candidate for governor, a woman named Nicole Galloway? Nicole Galloway lost by 17 points. And Brad, I got to tell you where I was wrong. I thought Crystal Quade would do a little bit better than Nicole Galloway did, but I was wrong. Mike Kehoe won by 21 points, Brad. Nearly 21. Let's call it 20 and a half, roughly 20 and a half points, stomping and spanking Crystal Quade on his way to the governor's mansion.
Do you know why that is, John, don't you?
Why is that?
I have a friend of mine that was doing exit polling, and he was asking people, he was hired by, I won't say who he was hired by, but all he was doing asking about the governor. And he asked hundreds of people coming out of polling sites. And they said, who did you vote for? And they said, I voted for Mike Kehoe. And they said, and he would ask the next question, why did you vote for Crystal Quade? And they all of them said, because she had that billboard with her name spelled wrong on 170.
That's exactly right. Thank goodness somebody pointed it out to her. Now, when you talk about Mike Kehoe, the other thing I would point out that was the biggest shocker, and it's a shame we don't have more time to get into this, but I think I can summarize it in a minute, is that the anticipation was that Democrats would have a mini wave, either a full wave election in Missouri in the state legislature or a mini wave. And in other words, conventional wisdom was that Democrats would pick up between 3 and 5 seats in the Missouri House and flip 1 or 2 districts in the state Senate. Brad, this was the first time in 5 elections that Democrats didn't pick up any House seats or any Senate seats in an election. Think about that. In the last 10 years, Brad, every election, Democrats do a little bit better in the state legislature, and this year they did not. And a lot of that has to do with the fact the House Republican Campaign Committee, those are the folks who run the House races throughout the state. Executive director, a woman named Hannah Beers Sutton, a political director named Dallas Ernst. These two engineered a campaign, along with a guy named Jonathan Ratliff, who used to run HRCC, to go into these districts, Brad. You only have so many resources. And exactly where do you spend your time, your money, your volunteer effort? It's amazing, Brad. I don't think I can overstate how shocking it is that Republicans did not lose a net number of seats last night. It's amazing. And again, every reporter in the state of Missouri who follows this closely was telling us that this would be a mini wave because of Amendment 3 and suburban women are standing up. Well, guess what? Democrats failed to pick up any seats in the legislature.
So in other words, the ratio in the Senate and House is exactly the same as it was?
Exactly the same. And the amazing thing is, and I should point to Rudy Keller of the Missouri Independent blog, does a really good job. I have a link to it up today. Each party, the headline is each party flipped a seat held by the other in each chamber but Democrats made no gains for the first time in 5 elections. And also, Brad, real quickly, that state Senate race that we've talked about, David Gregory versus a really good Democrat named Joe Peerless, Democrats spent a ton of money in, and David Gregory still won that race in West St. Louis County.
Interesting. I mean, because of the fact that you're exactly right. There's a lot of women, obviously a lot of women, and women, let's be honest, with the national thing, women were more inclined to vote Democratic vis-a-vis Kamala Harris. And like you said, they thought that was going to really do what they call it, the down ballot thing in the state of Missouri, where people, if the women are voting for the president, for a Democrat, that they're also going to have that Democratic mindset in their mind that, like, well, I'm going to vote for abortion and I'm going to vote for Democrats because we don't like those rascally Republicans, right?
Absolutely. So if you're a Democrat in the state of Missouri, you're taking a slight victory with Amendment 3 passing, and you're probably patting yourself on the back. But really, you look in the mirror and you say, how did we squander this opportunity? How were we beaten by Republicans, both on the Senate side and on the House side in the state of Missouri? Big wins for Missouri Republicans last night.
Interesting. Okay, we have to take a break. We will be back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?